Hey everyone, my name is Daniel. In today's video, let's take a look at the new catalog feature which is available in Power Platform. Currently, it is in preview, but it is going to go GA, which is generally available very soon. So as a quick overview, and as the name suggests, which is catalog, this is where you can take those popular and high usage apps in your company, which other departments may want to use. You can go and put it together as a catalog and make it available in your company. Also, don't confuse this with the existing templates which is available, because the templates does seem to do the same thing where you can go ahead and get an app which is a Canvas app or a model driven app and use it, but it's different. This is completely different. In fact, this is solutions based. So you don't just get one app or one flow, you get an entire solution. It could be a combination of apps, say one Canvas app and one model driven app, plus any of the flows or any of the tables that come along with it. It is 100% solutions based. That is a full package altogether. Now, instead of me walking you through step by step, I went and had a conversation with Derek Wan. Derek is the principal product manager who led the team that built this solution from ground up. So, without further ado, let's go talk to Derek. Hey, Derek, thank you for taking the time off your busy schedule for getting on this call over here. And for everybody else who's watching, one of the things which has caught my attention for a while, and I never really had too much time to deep dive in it until now, was catalog. This feature of catalog has actually appeared in our Power Platform tenants. It might be on your Power Platform tenant as well. And now it is really shining. In fact, it's going to go GA very soon. More of that information to come. And that's why after I did some playing and testing, I thought I would just reach out to the subject matter expert who has invested all his time building this with a good team behind. So, Derek, once again, thank you for joining. And please take a few seconds to introduce yourself, and then just give us a good overview of what catalog is all about.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for the invite. Big fan of your channel. Love all your content. So awesome to have the opportunity, to explain the catalog to all your fans. So yeah, my name is Derek Kwan. I am a principal product manager on Dataverse. I've been on the Dataverse team, I want to say, for maybe like 8 or 9 months. And before that, I've been at Microsoft, I think, for about 4 years now, mostly in Dynamics 365. I started off on the sales team, and then, I was kind of jumping around a couple of different teams inside the supply chain product before I moved over into Dataverse. And then, since I've joined Dataverse, I basically have been working almost entirely on this Power Catalog, which I'll be talking about today. But as Daniel mentioned, this is a feature that's going to be going GA towards the end of this month, and for the watchers, this is basically like September of 2024. So definitely look out for that. Just as a note, you will need managed environments to do something very specific in the catalog, which I'll explain as well. But Daniel, if it's okay, let me just jump right in and kind of start talking about the catalog. So the catalog, the Power Catalog, which is right now implemented into Power Apps and Power Automate, is really a workspace for you to be able to customize what we call like org specific like assets and artifacts and put it into a centralized place so that you and basically all the users across your tenant, across all your environments, can basically install these into their environments to use. So the example that I'll give you is you are managing your corporate website and you want to spin up a couple of new pages and you don't want to like recreate or screw up, right? Like your branding, your colors, your logo, the spacing, fonts, everything. But then also you have like a ton of different links in your menu and also in your footer. And then in your footer, you also have terms and conditions and privacy policies, right? And then even all these little widgets that you may have installed to do like specific things. To do that from scratch every time, not only is that a pain in the butt and really time consuming, and not even time consuming, just like wasteful of time. Like, why would you do that from scratch every single time? But can also be very error prone, right? You can screw up a link that goes the wrong way. You can screw up, your logo or the spacing or something, and then have your design team come and kind of like scream at you for it. So what you really want to do is perhaps clone the homepage, right? That has kind of everything that you need as a base, and then just kind of modify the content to create a careers page or create like a product page or something like that. So that's really the basis of the catalog. So instead of having, let's say, an app with all these connectors that are going to all these different data sources, and you have very complex mapping and flows and things like that, and even perhaps within these apps or these solutions that you're building, you even have very specific branding that you want to follow across your organization. You don't want to have to do that from scratch every single time. So now you can just customize like parts of this, right? Put it into this catalog and to be able to acquire it, right? And in this way, you are driving not only like design patterns but also like development patterns, right?
Mm.
You're driving maintainable patterns across your organization. And also talk a little bit too, you can also do things like make sure that everyone in your organization is using the most up-to-date and authoritative versions of the things that you're building. So what I'm showing you on the screen right now is the catalog inside of Power Apps. This is what we call the gallery view, and you might be familiar with this type of gallery view if you spent any time in things like App Source, or perhaps something like a Shopify, business application marketplace, or even like the iOS App Store, right? What this is just a marketplace of things that are available for your organization within your tenant. And you'll see a blend of things that you yourself or your organization has published in here. So as an example, I published this new catalog solution. I published this test solution. We've had some other people put some things in here like joggins, prod, smoke testing, right? So these are all solution packages that have been put into the catalog that I can pull down. In here, you can search for very specific things. So let's see, what's all the SAP stuff in here? I can find that. You can also filter for things like, and I'll go over what all these little things mean, but the deployment type, what does the solution package contain? Does it have model apps? Does it have canvas
Gotcha.
apps? Who is the publisher? So combinatorically, I can be like, well, give me all the templates that Microsoft has built that have to do with project management, right? So you can basically find anything within this marketplace to help you build the things that you want to build today. But the first question that might come up is, well, how the heck do I put stuff in here in the first place? So what?
In fact, Derek, one
Yeah.
question before that is like when we are in the catalog, I see all templates. And a lot of us who've been using Power Platform for a while, we are also familiar with the other templates. If you click on that create,
Create.
so
Yeah.
like just give like a good 30-second overview, or like what's the difference between those templates which are
Yeah.
available versus these new templates.
Very good question. So these templates are, what we might call like basic templates. And for anybody who has used these before, it's you're trying to do some sort of asset checkout or some sort of fundraiser, application. And you just kind of want like the shell, right, of what maybe somebody who makes a fundraiser app looks like. So Microsoft provides these for you, but there's not really much to this other than, like popping this thing open and then you have a shell that you can work in and you can build from, right?
Right.
What this really is the catalog is built on top of our solution system. So for people who are familiar with solutions is the way in which you can package a bunch of assets together, right? And mostly this is for, let's just call it like a transport vehicle or a deployment vehicle to say, well, okay, I have built something in my developer environment or a staging environment. I am ready to go publish this officially, right, into a
Mm.
production environment. So I'm going to use the solution to do that because solutions is backed by a whole bunch of stuff, including application lifecycle management and stuff like that. So catalog is built on top of the solution system. These
Gotcha.
templates are not solution aware. They're just, sort of like a shell of a thing.
Mhm.
However, we are going to in the future merge these things into the
Oh,
catalog. It
okay.
might be a little bit artificially. So at least it's part of the same pane of glass and you're not jumping to two different places. But there is a fundamental difference where these things are not going to
Okay.
come with a whole bunch of pre-built stuff behind it, right? It's just like a shell. Whereas the catalog itself is for you to put a solution in, right? So of course you could have a super simple solution that kind of looks like that, sure. But these are really more Microsoft provided, like starting points for you.
That was the key one, is that these are the ones which are Microsoft provided, which we have no control over. Catalog is the one that we can control and we can also manage it. So yeah,
Yeah.
the terms are the same, like the catalog templates, but completely different things. So
Yeah.
just I will clear that over there.
Good
Perfect.
point,
Thank you.
Daniel. And before actually, I need to also then clarify something that you just said because there is an additional nuance to this, right? So there are actually some things in the catalog that Microsoft will provide for you. So this is
Okay.
also why we want to merge these concepts together so there's not so many
Okay.
confusing surfaces, but just like a crawl, walk, run into how much our engineering team can tackle at a time.
Makes
But
sense.
in the catalog, you'll also see in the filter that I showed you that there are things that were published by Microsoft. And if you filter for
Gotcha.
that, Now you can see that there are things like this employee kudos template and this hardware request and management template. These are much more what I would describe as like heavyweight than those other templates, right? In these things are going to be connections and like environment variables and a whole bunch of stuff going on in here, right? Some of these even have like flows and maybe even already be connected to a couple of different data sources. So Microsoft is providing for you a whole bunch of these type of assets, but then we'll also
Mhm.
have in here like very specific like Power Platform data flow templates and AI prompt templates. So all of these are the possible things that you can start with. But the big difference is
Yeah.
that everything that's in this catalog surface is going to be things that are already in a solution and backed by solutions,
Mhm.
right? Whereas these
Right.
things out here are not, even though we are going to just sort of artificially bring them in so they're all kind of in the same place for you. But that's really what the primary difference is between those two things.
Yeah. The also that then this last thing is that the cat the templates that we were familiar with, they were just standalone apps, either Canvas app or a model driven app. But in this catalog templates, these are solutions. And
Right.
I'm already familiar with the employee kudos template and the employees
Yep.
and recognition. Like they come with, and you can see it over here, two model apps, one Canvas. So it's not just a standalone individual Canvas app or a model driven app. These are solutions. So I
Yes.
like how you started off explaining that it's a very solution driven because it provides you the whole, solution. So
Right.
big advantages to actually transitioning over to these catalogs.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's also a good way to talk about, well, how do you submit things into the catalog? So as I
Yeah.
mentioned, everything in the catalog isn't a solution. So what you submit into the catalog are unmanaged solutions. And you'll see that when a catalog gets spun up for you and it's enabled for your organization, and I can go a little bit through also how catalogs get set up after I kind of go through the basics, but you'll see this publish the catalog button.
Ah.
And then it's important to note that is only unmanaged solutions that can get
Mhm.
published into the catalog. So if you go to managed, and you go to publish, you cannot, right? We've grayed this out because this is already like a managed thing and it's sort of done. And we think about
Mm.
manage as almost like a completed deployed type of thing. And that's not something that you want to, potentially pile in there and
Right.
reuse. But then the other thing too is if you go to apps and let's just say that, we're like, well, you know what, I want to just put this app into the catalog. And you notice that there isn't a direct publish to catalog button.
Mm.
And this is because we don't know if this is already wrapped in a solution or it might be but might not exactly be the solution package that you want to publish, which is why we
Gotcha.
ask you to go to solutions first, and then it's like basically create a new solution, put that app in, and go publish it. We are going to soon build like a shortcut where there will be a publish the catalog button where the first step is putting in a solution first. But it's important to note that what you're really putting in there all the time are unmanaged solutions.
Gotcha. So my one of the thoughts that came to my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that if you're building this from a catalog standpoint, like a company is building a solution which they want to share it in the catalog, then make sure that that solution is used exclusively for those apps, flows, and data tables. Don't have, other stuff in as well. That solution should be very focused only on that because I've seen scenarios where people have built solutions, but they've got multiple apps from multiple
Mm-hmm.
scenarios, which
Yeah.
works fine for those scenarios. But specifically from a catalog standpoint, your solution should have only that one solution that you're working on, which is exclusively maybe one app or two apps or whatever, but tied to that. Don't have multiple ones because then all of those others will also get shared. Am I correct on that side?
Yeah, basically what you want to, maybe what we're talking about is, kind of health and cleanliness of your solutions. Don't just have it to be like
Mm.
this whole garbage pail or,
Garbage pail.
trash can
Yep.
of stuff, right? And that becomes especially important if you're publishing things with the purpose of having other makers go and grab something and use it. Because if you give them like this whole like kitchen sink of things, they're not going to be able to figure what's going on. So you should try to be, pretty focused what you're doing, but the catalog is open for you. If you wanted to do a kitchen sink in here for some reason, sure, but make sure that you have some sort of purpose behind doing something like that, right?
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. You notice that the very first step in this publish the catalog wizard is this select a catalog. So, this will imply that you could have multiple catalogs in your tenant. Basically, you can spin up one catalog per environment if you wanted to. So you have 100 environments, you can spin up 100 catalogs. The reason why that might be needed is I think most companies are fine with just one because
Mm.
anybody across actually all environments across your tenant can read from your one catalog. So you can just say,
Oh.
I'm going to publish it to this one catalog in this one environment and everyone can go pull down whatever I need, fine. But some companies think about using catalogs to partition things like different regions, right? or they could partition it for different business units within their organization where, okay, so I have the team that builds products for my sales team and the team that builds stuff for my supply chain team are going to have very specific like apps and assets and components that they use. And I actually want them to only use those things and not use the stuff that the sales team is using. So this might be the reason why you want to split up multiple, but now you can see I can choose which catalog I want to publish it into. So I'm going to say, well, this thing that I built, I meant to put it into this environment test 99 while I'm still working on it. You'll notice that there are two types. It's manage item versus template. So this is probably the most important thing to understand about the catalog is you can build or you can publish this as a template. And a template means that this is now a completely disassociated pure copy of the thing that it originated from. It has no connection to that original solution. And then when you publish it into the catalog, if you have 10 makers in an environment who want to pull down 10 copies each, they can do that. They would have 100 copies sitting in that environment, 10 for each maker. They can do whatever they want with it, tear it apart, take 1% of it or take 100% of it, whatever they want to do. A managed item, though, is a more tightly controlled, not really editable artifact that gets put into the catalog. It is tightly connected to the original solution, and then every maker within that environment has to share that single copy. So you would use this one if you say, well, this is something that is very carefully constructed that I want people to use as is, and it could be a full-on application, or it could just be, let's just say as an example, I just used one connector that connected to one data source and I put logic behind it and I want them to use this component exactly as is when they plug it into their apps. That too, right? This thing can be versioned over time. So this means that if every month I want to make an update, I can republish it into the catalog, and then people will see an update button instead of a get button. And this is how you ensure that all the makers across your tenant are always using the version that you intend.
Wow, so that managed and item, man, that I like almost had a jaw drop moment on that one because there is so many use cases for that. First
Yeah,
of all, enterprise level companies are going to adopt that so much faster
right,
because they will have that app that they want to build exactly the way it is. They want to control all the features and functionalities, but also give all the major line of businesses the flexibility to use it. Now, the major line of businesses, I don't think they're going to complain about the inability because, hey, the other people are taking care of all the features, updates, and everything,
right.
but giving them all that flexibility as well. I still like that you already have the template feature just in case for the other people who want to either do some reverse engineering and do some learning, or the item is just not what they want and they want to tweak it a little bit. You've given them that as well. But man, that managed environment concept is fantastic. I'm really glad that you're releasing that as one of the first things.
And then, on the template side of things, I should note that, as I mentioned, this is built on top of our solution system, and not every single solution component supports what we call template mode today. So
Gotcha.
we are going to be making some updates to make sure that you understand when you're building the solution in the first place, you put something in here that's not supported for template mode, and then maybe when you go to submit that thing, we only allow you to do manage item. These are just little things that you'll note, but we have public documentation out there that you can read, and I think in the interest of time, Daniel, to make sure we kind of keep this within something consumable, I'm going to probably skip over some of the details, but
Yeah.
you can set something like a primary component, which is like, what is the focus of this solution package? Is it an app? Is it the flow, right? Which one is
Right.
it? So that at the very end of an installation from another maker, they can say, well, I want to edit the app, or I want to edit the flow, or you know what, I'm not ready, I want to go to the solutions page, right?
Gotcha.
So this is really just more for, a choose your own adventure at the end for an installer. You'll notice just basic metadata, you can fill in things like a title and a description. You notice this business justification. You just mentioned enterprise companies. A lot of our private preview customers were very big enterprise companies. And they gave us a lot of very specific requirements. Things that I, as a product manager, might perceive as friction ended up being extremely necessary things that enterprise companies would not basically use the catalog without, right? So as an example, you'll see this business justification field, and this is because by default, there needs to be an approver to approve these items
Right.
before they end up into the catalog, because you don't want people putting kind of bad stuff in there either on purpose or by accident, right? There is a set of RBAC where basically, or sorry, role-based access controls where makers have to have a submitter role to even be able to submit. They have to
Yeah.
have an approver role to be able to approve. You have catalog admin, so each catalog that you spin up can have their own admin. You also even need a read-only role, which is like the basic role to be able to even like view and consume things. You
Got it.
notice that there's a
Mhm.
publisher here as well. So the publisher is not the same as the environment publisher. This is a catalog publisher.
Gotcha.
So the purpose of the publisher is if I submit this as Derek Pub, if somebody else comes in and finds this solution package and they want to resubmit it, what happens is this will detect whether or not that package has been submitted into that environment already. If it
Mm.
has been submitted, it becomes a resubmission. If you were not part of the original publishing group, you cannot resubmit. So there are all these controls built into the catalog to make sure that we are following all the kind of governance and security needs of enterprise companies. And again, because this is backed by our solution system, it is very secure and practices good application lifecycle management. And then you can basically just put in basic things like
Okay.
icons and
Mhm.
screenshots and help links and all that. I'm not going to go through this, but basically then it's review and finish. It does go into a queue for
Gotcha.
your approvers to go get, and then after you publish it, it will then show up here. And
Nice.
as I mentioned, you have manage versus template. So let's just say we just looked at this one, Derek's new catalog solution. Looks like somebody put it into Derek Environment Test 99. And actually, let me just do this. Let's just say I go to this one, MCS portfolio, right? And then in
Yeah.
the MCS portfolio, you'll also notice that I can still see all the same things. So this is to demonstrate that literally across any environment, you should be able to see all the things that have been published into the catalog. If you have spun up multiple catalogs, I can just filter and be like, okay, I only want the ones in Derek Environment Test 99. Which one are those? And you can essentially just install this into any environment that you want. What
Gotcha. Right.
and then what the kind of installation process looks like is, let me just start with one of these ones. Let's grab this one. You notice the title and description that you put in, we will detect what's included in here. If you put some links in here, we will put those in as well. There is a version number that you can take a look at. Any screenshots that you uploaded, you can go and take a
Nice.
bigger look at that, right?
Mhm.
And then when you go and click get, this is where we will check within the solution package, are there connections in here, right? And will they work in this environment? Are there environment variables that you included that was for people to be able to go fill out before they actually go install the thing? There's a third step called package configuration, and that might be something where the original originating maker may say, well, how many days a week do you run a status report? And when you put that in, it will actually configure it so that it will work a very specific way. We will hide any step that's not needed to kind of save you a little bit of time. But that's really what this installation wizard is doing. It's going to run you through a whole bunch of stuff in that package that you need, may need to fill out or just check. And then after you've completed installing it, it will then end up back in your, depending on what it is, if it was a template, it will end up back in your
Okay.
unmanaged solutions list. If it was a managed item, it will end up in your managed item list.
Gotcha. Well, one of the things I looked at and I had such a big smile on my face was environment variables. Like
Yeah.
you thought about that from the get-go because I saw the connections, but especially when you're starting to build these solutions and practice that, ALM, application lifecycle management, yeah, using environment variables was basically the way we did it. Assign variables for an environment in your dev or QA and then move it around. And you already factor that in even for the catalog because people will go ahead and bring that into their environment. And so that environment variables is something that they would have to populate. So the fact that you thought about that from the get-go already tells me like I am super excited about this one. But you were thinking ahead of time for the scenarios of using it. So yeah, again, major kudos to your team for thinking about that because like I'm already sensing right from the get-go that you've made this enterprise ready, like from the highest
Yes.
level.
Yes.
And that environment variables, that is the signature that, yep, you guys thought of everything. Yep.
Yeah.
Congrats.
And yeah, thank you. And we would love, your followers, your fans, and the community to help us, kind of play with this and test it out.
Yeah.
And there's some really interesting use cases that come up. An internal team found out about the catalog, and they're like, what I want to try to do is that I'm constantly spinning up demo environments to demo stuff to our users, and then I have to like seed it with sample data. I need to like basically like reset the thing back into its original state after doing a demo. Can I actually just publish a whole bunch of things into the catalog, right? That I can spin up a new environment, install the things that I need, do the demo on it, and then just like take down the environment and spin up a new one. And they did that. So like they can now very quickly spin up a demo environment and have it seeded with all the sample data that they need, right? And then have it in the originating state instead of having to figure out which buttons do I have to kind of unclick to get it back. And so yeah, there are many like different types of scenarios that can be looked at. And we've had a lot of our, MVP community, a lot of our partners, ISVs, SIs, they want to have the customers that they work with very specific components that they've set up for them, right? Or maybe they're even being asked to build full-on applications for them, right? The catalog is also their way to be able to, maybe they have an environment in that customer's tenant where they can go build a bunch of stuff. And then now, instead of having to do all this crazy like side loading and maybe emailing a solution package to somebody, which is super not secure, you can do all of this in the catalog. And then, as I mentioned, if they wanted to pre-build some components that their organization should use, then they can make them manage items, control them, and version them for the company. So there's a lot of different uses for the catalog. I'm walking you through sort of the basics of it and how it's
Right.
used, but it is a very open system that can handle a lot of use cases.
So that's interesting. I almost feel like I need to retract what I said previously, that when you're building the solution for the catalog, it doesn't have to be siloed to just those apps and flows. Like that
Nope.
example that you said, you
Yep.
could have everything tied to that one environment in that solution. You just add that catalog to your environment, and then by default, it is already hydrated. It's got everything. That is an interesting scenario. Yeah, I can see so many use cases for that, for labs, for doing
Yep.
POCs and pilot testing and everything. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So one of the things you showed us about the catalog already available in the environment. How do you go and install that? And is there something that the environment or the Power Platforms can view it from an administrative standpoint, like how many are being used and everything? So those
Great.
two things, like the installation and
Yeah.
administration.
Great questions. So basically how you spin up a catalog in the first place. And now I have to update our public documentation because before you had to pull in like this hidden like app source package and put it into PPAC and do it. But we built something to make it a little bit easier for you to do.
Gotcha.
So the first one though is that the catalog will auto provision for you. And how you trigger an auto provision is the very first time you come into the catalog, you'll see it. If the catalog has not been installed yet, you can still pull down anything that Microsoft has provided for you. So when you first come in here, all the things that Microsoft has provided you will be here, and you can install those no problem without really even spinning up a catalog. But uh, the very first time that you go to try to install something, we will auto provision a catalog for you. I would
Mm.
still say I would recommend, especially for enterprise companies, have your admin manually go set it up for you first because they want to configure it a very certain way instead of the auto provisioning. They're still going to
Mm.
need to do like sign all the specific roles. But I think spinning up a catalog from scratch gives you a little bit more control. This was just so that, you don't have a bunch of people sitting around waiting for somebody to go spin up the catalog for them. They can just kind of get it, automatically. But how you create a catalog is you actually go to Admin Center or PPAC. And then you notice that now in PPAC, under resources on the left, there is a new catalogs entry.
Mm.
And then from here is where you can basically create a new catalog. So you saw that there were already two catalogs here. You
Yeah.
can click in any of these and administer it. But now here, if you create a new catalog, you'll see, fill out all this information, basically pick which environment you want this to go into, right? And then, you can see here, set up the approvers, set up the spinners, set up the consumers, right? If you
Hmm.
want to modify the categories that are already included, you see all this kind of like really nice like things that you can build. But
Yeah.
this is how you create a new catalog inside of your environment.
Cool. That wizard actually looks very user friendly. So there is
Yeah.
a when somebody can go, so you can actually also set up those categories. Like not everybody is entitled to submit a catalog. So you can control the permissions at that level. You also got a way to see who are the approvers. I like that granular level permission access that you were setting up over there. And so I'm
Yep.
just assuming that these are all just roles that are set up in the back end, and you just add people to them on the. Okay, perfect. That makes
Yep.
it easier to manage on that. So is there like a catalog admin app, like a
Yep.
model-driven app or something?
Yep. So after
Awesome.
you create a catalog in an environment, what you'll see is
Yeah.
when you go into apps, there will be a Power Platform Catalog Manager. And then
Gotcha.
when you click play, this thing will open. But before we click play, just note that as I mentioned, you can spin up one catalog per tenant if you wanted to. None of the environments have a catalog, but all those environments can read from that one environment. The only environment that has the catalog manager is in the environment in which the catalog was set up. So this means that if I go over to one of these other environments that's not Derek Environment Test 99, I won't see the catalog manager in the My Apps tab. I will see it in the All tab. but not in the My Apps tab.
Right.
And you may not even have, permissions to do a bunch of stuff in here. But, other than that, you can read all about this in the documentation. But if you were to
Gotcha.
open up the Power Platform Catalog Manager, and this is really more of an administrative interface or administrator slash approver interface.
Okay.
As you submit things into the catalog, I don't think we're going to have any requests in here. Oh, yeah, we have one. So, there will be a whole bunch of requests piling up in here for your admins to go do. And what they can do is they come in here. And, I wouldn't just come in here and go press the approve button because, that sort of defeats the purpose of having this here. But you can basically do things like look at the actual catalog item, check the publisher, right? You can basically open up the catalog item, look at the solution package itself. So there's a whole bunch of different things that you can kind of check in here, as long, including a timeline with anything that was kind of done to this. And then when you're ready to approve this, you click the complete approval button. And then assuming that nothing goes wrong, this will end up showing up in that gallery view that I showed you before. Sometimes things will fail. So this is why you can look at things that fail pre-validation, open it up and kind of see, well, what was the actual issue here, right? Where was failed pre-validation? So you can kind of dig around in here and kind of figure out where it is, but you can basically look up where the error message is. And then after things are officially published, you can go into catalog items and you'll see all the ones that ended up in here. You'll also see certain things like the status of it, right? It's published, but some of these might be in an error state. And again, you can kind of open it up to see what happened. But this is also where you can do things like curate. Well, you know what? I want to just take these things out of here right now, right? So I'm going to deactivate them or delete them. So there are all these different things that an admin or approver can do in here. You can also toggle this thing on the bottom to go to settings, where in settings, as I mentioned to you, you can disable the admin approval and have everything auto approve. We wouldn't recommend this, but 100% enterprise companies will probably never turn this off. But yeah, so this is really just the administrative interface. Obviously, there will be more and more updates to come as we go, but mostly you should be able to do everything you need to do within that little model-driven app, as you mentioned.
Yep. And so when you're configuring the Power Platform, the catalog for the first time, does anybody need to? What level of access do they need? Because is just an environment admin enough, or do they need to have the Power Platform admin role? Like what do you recommend on that side?
So basically, any sysadmin or sys customizer will have it's like super user access to catalog, just like you almost have super user access to everything else. So that's kind of how we start, but nobody else really has anything in there until you start assigning those other roles.
Gotcha. So basically, sysadmin means at least the environment's administrator role needs to have minimum requirement. Okay, that is good. I like that. Granular level permissions on that. Cool. I mean, like I said, the concept really jives with me because one of the things was I had actually replicated this 4 years ago because there was already a need for this 4 years ago.
Right.
And I used to take these export the solutions as zip files, and I used to go and put them, believe it or not, in a SharePoint library, and we had a nice page to make it look like here's the apps. But again, people would have to download it, then they would have to upload it. So much work on that side. Definitely versioning and everything was out the door because you just could not do any of that. So when I saw this, I had a big smile cheek to cheek because you solved a big problem. There's a big need for this. And then you've gone ahead and added that. So yeah, thank you so much for doing that. And I'm excited to see all the other features that you're going to release. And from the get-go, you did it right. Solutions based.
Thank you.
Put it well, factored in environment variables, which we will need. So thank you once again, Derek, for showing us this end-to-end demo over here. In closing, is there anything else you want to highlight over here?
Obviously there are a lot of things still happening, where should we be able to tell you which ones are most used? So you get some signal on that, right? So the ones that are most used, you might want to, number one, say, hey, what are these people doing that makes it such a popular asset, right? Also, should we be putting tighter governance and controls around this thing because it's so often used, right? We want to put things in here like ratings and reviews, so that you can at least, get some idea of like what's like another, maybe, your internal customer signal on which things are good or bad. We also want to do things like making sure that there's better like error detection and dependency detection, right? Right now there's some basics of that, but then sometimes even I go to install something, I'm like, oh, what does this error mean? I have to go ask engineering. So we have to make some of that better too. But yeah, certainly a lot of that we're going to be focusing on as part of GA. And then for any of your listeners that are using Microsoft Copilot Studio, we are also bringing the catalog in bits and pieces to Copilot Studio. So you'll see some reusable assets there as well, and eventually ways in which you can submit and customize your own things to go fetch across your org. But yeah, a whole bunch of cool stuff happening with catalog. So definitely, keep an eye on it.
Gotcha. So an important thing you mentioned was about Copilot Studios coming in the future, which means as of right now, catalog can be available only for Power Apps and Power Automate. That's what I heard then. Okay.
Yep, that's right.
Copilot Studio soon to come. So you
Yes.
already have that on your roadmap. Perfect.
Yep.
At least Power Apps and Power Apps are good on that side. Cool. Well, thank you once again, Derek, for taking time off your busy schedule to walk us through this. Also, for any of you watching, Derek is going to be there at the Power Platform Community
Yeah.
Conference 2024 in Vegas. He's going to actually be co-presenting also. So if you see him, stop him, thank him for putting in the work to build the catalog over there. He loves selfies too, so take some time to do that. And Derek, I myself look forward to meeting over there in person. And once again, thanks for your time, man. Really appreciate that. And once again, major kudos for getting this together. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the opportunity.
All right. See ya. Hello. So if you like this video, go ahead and click on that subscribe button and smash that like button. Also, if you have a few extra seconds, can you go and put in a comment? Either say something nice or give me ideas for my next video. And until then, see ya.